Excellent. So, welcome Maya Markovich to the next installation of our podcast. Really excited to have you here. For those who are listening to the podcast, Maya Markovich, you can check her out on LinkedIn. It's Maya Markovich on LinkedIn, and also your Twitter feed. I've just been informed is the other way around, which is at Markovich Maya. So for those who are interested in all the things that you're talking about on Twitter, please subscribe to Maya there. So Maya, lovely to have you here. Been super excited all day for this. This is like the best part of my day. Maybe just to begin with, it would be fantastic to tell us, who you are, what do you do, and I know you do a million things, but maybe you can describe them in succinctly and way better than I can in terms of who you work for and what you're working on right now.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of this podcast, actually, so it's quite the honor. I have recently unbundled my career. I'm working as a startup advisor, legal tech and justice tech investment advisor, and a legal innovation consultant, where I'm working with teams from legal operations to ALSPs to law firms to help them deliver tech-enabled services, make sense of the legal tech landscape and implement legal tech with a kind of a long-range change design perspective. But prior to that, just a couple of months ago, I left. I was Chief Growth Officer at Nextlaw Labs, which is the industry's first tech-focused innovation catalyst that was founded by Dentons, the world's largest law firm. So our mandate 6 years ago when we were founded was to reinvent the business and practice of law via technology, just a small goal. And we worked with Denton's clients and attorneys to really make that happen in myriad ways. So anything from investing in and accelerating legal tech startups, creating tech-supported legal services, helping global practice leaders develop and implement their own innovation strategies, and supporting clients in their own legal departments transformation, and them also their efforts to deliver more value to their own organizations.
Oh, excellent. I mean, as a kind of a fellow entrepreneur, probably like yourself, I'm always really interested in startups and companies and new ways of working that are really solving some of the big problems. Proper game changing. How successful do you think? I mean, that's a big challenge in terms of reinventing the business of law, or the ways of working with law. Do you think you were successful? And maybe what was the biggest success that you had at Nextlaw?
I would say, we had a lot of really great kind of firsts. And I think that one of the things that I'm most proud of in our work at Nextlaw was really changing in many ways the discussion of what's the norm in the legal industry. When we were established and we launched, a lot of people thought that Dentons was really crazy, actually, because no law firm had ever put multi-year R&D funding, essentially, towards any sort of innovation initiative. And so subsequent to that, now there are probably 40 or so, perhaps more. Those are the ones we knew about. Got efforts that are similar and kind of approaching the same issue from different ways. But our view always was, a rising tide lifts all boats. So the more money that's coming in via investment, the more law firms are doing things that are changing the way that they're serving their clients, the better for the industry and for all of us.
Yeah. No, really great. I love that quote, rising tide lifts all boats.
I know.
Wonder on that one. I might steal that one from you if that's okay.
Oh, it's not. I'm sure it's like Churchill or something. I don't
know. Excellent. All right. So, I mean, you've obviously completely revolutionized your world now in terms of, you've changed it all up. You've left Nextlaw. Now you're getting involved in, the startups around advising and, some other projects and things like that. Tell me, when you're not driving back and forth from Tucson. Like, what does a day in the life of Maya look like?
Right, a work day. Well, as long as the kids are in school and not in lockdown, I'm continually, just like every other parent out there, continually attempting to balance a lot of responsibilities and maintain focus on getting things done. So, obviously there's lots of computer time interspersed with breaks. I try to make a point to rest my eyes kind of with the longer horizon views. I did not used to wear glasses before the pandemic. That's a new thing. As often as possible throughout the day. And that actually really helps me also free up my mind from that kind of close focus on the logistical to kind of the more expansive. I try to meditate, call an old friend, check in on parents, get some exercise, be outside. We get a lot of opportunity in California to get fresh air. So, that's most of my day. Then, I pick up the kids, I get them situated doing homework, I do more work, or I'll drive one of them to some activity or sport and I'll keep working in the car. Come home, make dinner, tie up loose ends, plan things for the next day. We really make an effort to sit down and eat as a family and have kind of uninterrupted family time until their bedtime. Then, I put the phone and the laptop to sleep in the kitchen. Catch up with my husband, maybe make a really good cocktail, and then fall asleep. I try to read an actual book, a real paper book at night.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of things in a day. So you must be incredibly busy. Well, what's your go-to cocktail?
Ooh, good one. When I'm not feeling creative, probably a Manhattan.
Yeah, nice. Nice, excellent. All right, one of the things I always ask everybody, just because I think for really successful individuals, it's always really interesting to see some of their habits and rituals. So you were talking about meditation and things like that. What are your morning rituals? Like, how do you start the morning typically? Like, is it coffee? Is it what does the first kind of 2 hours of the day look like?
I don't think it's that interesting, but I'm the one that's first up in the house. I make breakfast and lunch for the kids, I clear my emails, I clear any, I check anything I can, clear anything out, check the calendar for the day's meetings. I do try to make a list of achievable and stretch goals for the day.
Yeah.
And then another thing because I work internationally with so many other time zones, I try to fire off as many emails as I can to folks that are, nearing the end of their workday. Then I sit down and I drink my coffee with the kids as they eat breakfast. Try to take some time to connect with them. Then I take them to school and I walk around we have a beautiful lake in Oakland called Lake Merritt. And so I do that. And then I, return home and get started working. It doesn't seem all that revolutionary.
No. I still think it is. It's a weird thing, but I do find that, those who are successful, they do tend to have quite these schedules to start the day. And one of the interesting things you were talking about is the lists. It's not the first time I've heard the to-do lists, and I must find I'm erratic at it and can definitely, improve at doing that. But every time I do a list, it's great to tick things off, right?
It really is. It's very satisfying.
Yeah, and just some other ones that I've heard in the past are it's really important to make your bed because then you've completed something at least in one day and things like that. So yeah, really, really great to hear. Conscious nowadays you're doing quite a lot of advising into startups or in the legal tech space. And do you want to talk a little bit about some of the projects that you're involved in? I see TIQ Time and Theorem, LTS. Well, what are they, and what role are you playing there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love working with startups and advising CEOs. A lot of what I do, so I'm an advisor for 3 or 4 legal tech startups. I have, and those are ones that I, have known for a long time and have been working with, informally for a long time. One thing actually I will say is that I am an advisor and mentor for LexLab, which is an incubator, a legal tech company incubator at my alma mater, law school, which is UC Hastings. So I, I know quite a bit of them through that kind of informally, and then moving on to kind of more formal roles with them. A lot of what I do with them is, I mostly provide expertise, advise on, product sales, go to market, messaging and positioning, pitching and fundraising. And a lot of their strategic growth questions. They're all in similar, not completely, identical, but similar phases of growth. And so, I can help them with a lot of those different things as they come up.
Yeah, cool. What is there any kind of you think that are going to be game changing in terms of coming to market, and any that you want to kind of call out and mention that you think are going to change the game in terms of legal?
Well, I can't pick my favorite child. I will say, I think all of them have very strong potential in very different ways. I think they're addressing very different problems, which is also one of the things that I love so much. I'm working with Courtroom 5. They are a platform to support, automated legal support for people representing themselves without a lawyer, completely on their own. Tick Time is a time tracking solution. It's actually kind of a time capture solution, which addresses, of course, the issue of leakage in terms of billable hours, which, goes back to my feeling about the entire structure of the legal industry, but also that it's important to, filter everything through capturing the real value that's created by legal work. And then Theorem is, it's an excellent, and it's a platform that provides this contextual understanding and adoption of legal tech. So it's got, hundreds of legal tech solutions on its platform, and it's bringing them together with firms as well as organizations like ELTA, Alita, and organizations that are kind of trying to help their members drive the change forward and have access to legal tech that's already been vetted. So, a lot of that is kind of more power to the people, I guess.
Yeah, excellent. I'm a firm believer in terms of putting the more information about legal tech out there on the market to kind of make more educated buying choices.
Right.
Switching it up a little bit, like if you were to give a TED talk and it's outside of the your area of expertise, like so outside of legal or legal tech or things like that, or what would be the TED talk that you would give, and why?
I had to think really hard about this one, actually, because I was like, I don't know, pandemic parenting. I think everyone's learning on the fly right now. But one thing I think I'm really good at is thinking down the road and planning for contingencies. So I think, and I really think that's actually only been enhanced in our current world, where you really can't count on anything you plan actually happening, right? So, but I can look down the road, think of, a bunch of things that you might need to have started or on hand, as things progress. So I'm usually very prepared for various possibilities coming to fruition. I'm rarely caught off guard, but it happens. So I guess my TED Talk would be, tactics around that, and also how to bounce back when you are caught off guard.
That would be a great talk. I heard another great saying, which was fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Maybe that could be the name of your talk.
Yep. Oh, God, that's a good one. Yes.
And I certainly would advocate that we would need some of your help around my house. We were one of the families that were caught out with with no toilet paper when the first stuff started going down. So definitely we could do with your assistance. What just kind of turning to, I mean, you're obviously very successful and still thriving and kind of and high energy in terms of the things that you want to do. But when you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to mind for you, and why?
I think leaving aside kind of my dream life of, living on a, old rambling stone house in Bordeaux or something, I I really I focus in on kind of life attitude when I think about successful. So, you know, somebody that I just admire beyond even description is Dr. Philip Zambardo. He was my advisor and mentor at Stanford in psychology and human behavior, and beyond all of the incredible things that he's contributed to the understanding of human behavior over just an illustrious and incredibly lengthy career. He overall has really always followed his passion and his fascination kind of to the next incredible psychological development or discovery. So, he's a lifelong learner, brilliant psychologist, was, a truly incredible and inspiring educator, and a curious and compassionate human. So,
yeah. Wow.
I'll strive for those things.
Yeah. Wow. Like I actually don't know him. I'll have to go and do some research on him and find out who he is.
Have you heard of the Stanford prison experiment?
No, tell me about that.
That's what most people have heard of. But yeah, go look it up. You'll be, and then come and ask me more questions about what it was to be in a room with him for several years.
Yeah, wow. Excellent. What about, and I'm a type of person who definitely feels like I try to learn from my mistakes, and actually I think in the innovation kind of space, it's important to feel like you can make mistakes, because that's kind of, you can only keep trying until you get it right, for example. Well, what in your mind, like, in your experience, sorry, like, how has a failure or apparent failure like set you up for later success? Or, do you have a favorite failure?
I mean, I fail all the time.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific example. Failure is really a part of the journey to success, and I think that this is one thing that I think I've learned most acutely in the last, I would say 5 or 6 years, is that failure has to be welcomed as an opportunity to refine your approach.
Yeah.
It can be challenging to communicate that ethos to people who are risk averse or expecting ROI immediately. And so, managing expectations is important, but failure is all about, continual learning and finding new and more productive and constructive ways to work and think, kind of out of preconceived notions. And so, yeah, it's a daily occurrence for me.
What about at Nextlaw, where, and because I've kind of come from a similar culture, Clifford Chance, like where when you're at that level, perfection is expected, in terms of, everything you do. I think in terms of, the documentation, the project management, the initiatives and everything in the way that you conduct yourself. How do you think, the culture is inside the legal industry with regards to failure?
Not so much how I described, definitely.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think, for one thing, just the entire structure of how you become educated to become a lawyer is something that is rigorous in the sense that it channels people down one path of a definition of success, right? And that's a whole other podcast, right? But it's really interesting to think about how while you're learning how to be a lawyer, in many cases, your field of vision is narrowing in a lot of ways, and then people who leave the practice of law there's a lot of guilt around that, and they see themselves as having failed, for not having made it in these incredibly, strict kind of parameters of what success actually means. And so, I think, it's setting expectations is super important. I mean, one thing I would say we did, in fact, that's probably a good failure to talk about. Very early on in our journey with Next Law Labs, we were just, trying to establish routes to which we could be helpful, of course, and also kind of gain traction. And so we probably took on a little bit more than we should have, in the short term. And that, and it is just a part of, I don't think it was, in the end, it was great. Maybe it's my favorite failure is that we didn't, we were in this ambiguous situation, and we found ourselves kind of having to define it ourselves. And so after a few iterative, back and forths where there was, potential misunderstandings or misalignment as to, who are the key stakeholders, or, how, realistic timetables or that kind of thing towards delivering, what was discussed, that we developed a really excellent engagement model. And so that really set us up for later success, because obviously we continually tweaked it, but we had this engagement model wherein it was very easy to explain at the outset what was achievable and how we could work together. And that, that really just, everything just gained a lot of speed once we had that in place.
Really good lesson learned there. If someone's trying to do an engagement model, how would you describe, what are the steps to kind of creating one, and what does good look like for that?
Oh, I don't think there's any one way to do an engagement model, and I really do think that it depends, mostly on what you have in place internally, right? And I would say my top piece of advice there would be truly understanding your internal capabilities before building that out, because then at the same time you can note along the way in the engagement model where you're going to need input, where you're going to need time commitments, and where you're going to need resources that you don't already have, because most often you're working with a pretty lean team in these early days.
Cool. Now I see there's a piano in the background there, and it's actually even got a piano book, which means it must get used. Is that yourself, or the fact?
I try to, but my kids, they do virtual piano lessons, and they love it. Yep.
Nice. So if you were to say, what a theme song for Maya, what would be your theme song, you think?
Well, I'm kind of old school. I would say, for me, there's a great song by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, with Teddy Pendergrass, an old one. It's called "Wake Up, Everybody."
Yeah.
And it's got some. First of all, we play it, we blast it to get the kids out of school on the first day of out of bed on the first day of school. But also, I've taken it really to heart, because, it says, wake up, everybody. No more backward thinking. Time for thinking ahead. The world won't get better if we just let it be. We got to change it together. And so that's kind of how I've always felt. I think we all need to take the initiative, bring people up with us, and move ahead together. And that's where true change is going to happen, when we're all pulling in the same direction.
No, I collect a lot of vinyl, and I've got quite a lot of Harold Melvin and the
Oh yeah, oh good. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Excellent. Fantastic. Like I definitely think that music is for me is a kind of something that I kind of relax to, in terms of that's kind of my escape. So thinking about the changes that you've made recently, and the new direction that you're going, you'd probably say that you're part of the big resignation, I guess.
Yeah.
What advice, and even kind of considering some of the points that you raised about the legal education and the way law is taught, etc. What advice would you give to your younger self now? Say, you're just leaving university and coming into the working world.
I think I would. Well, first of all, with respect to law school and kind of figuring out my career direction, which happened later, I would say I would advise to let go of that strange guilt that you feel about leaving the practice of law. Let go of that much sooner, because it opens up a world of possibilities. In terms of more generally, I would say take the embrace of the unknown in your personal life and apply it to your professional life sooner. Be true to yourself, cut ties with those who don't have your best interests at heart, like mercilessly, and just keep those that do have your best interests at heart close. And also, I would say also try to take every opportunity that's offered, even if you really don't think you're ready for it. Doing things for the first time is challenging, but it leads to so much, professional growth, emotional intelligence, and it's kind of addictive. So discovering that sooner would have been great.
Yeah, no, really great advice. Yeah, and I love the let go of people who don't have your best interests at heart. Mercilessly, kind of that's one lesson that I think I would have given to myself as well. A piece of advice. Yeah. All right, like just changing it up and kind of like one kind of last fun question. Like, what is the best purchase you've made in the last 6 months?
I think the best purchase I've made is I bought tickets to Chile for my family to finally see Patagonia, Torre del Paine, and really unplug entirely.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm resigned to it not potentially not happening due to COVID. Yeah. So of course, because I planned for contingencies, I ensured that I got, refundable reservations and everything. But, even if it doesn't happen, the purchase kind of allows me to live there in my mind for so many months. It's like buying a lottery ticket in a way. And I love travel. I mean, it's my first love, truly. I'll take it. I hope we go, but even if we don't, we'll go eventually is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, excellent. And where's your favorite destination that you've traveled to so far?
I would say, man, that's really hard. I have traveled a lot. I would say it's probably a tie between New Zealand, Turkey, and Morocco.
Wow. Very, very different. I mean, I guess Turkey and Morocco are a little bit aligned in terms of like, great foods, similar kind of cultures and things like that. New Zealand is just a beautiful place. Are you talking the South Island or the North Island?
I did both. I was there for a month, actually. So I got a chance to, although I was pretty low to the ground, I was a backpacker. So, I felt like the whole time I was there, I was just staring out the window with my jaw open and thinking of all the places I wanted to come back to.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one more though. One more, which is Slovenia, which I felt similarly about, and I really can't wait to go back there. I would love to live there.
Well, yeah, like an unexpected underdog, Slovenia.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, excellent. No, I've got a fond. I met my wife in New Zealand, and when we were both backpacking, so I've got, like a fond spot in my heart for New Zealand, definitely. And actually, I experienced my first earthquake there too. So
we're used to those.
Not dangerous. Sorry.
We're used to those.
Yeah, you're used to them, right? Yeah, and I imagine. Like maybe just one final point, like what, I guess just to leave us with, what do you think 2022 has in store for legal and for Maya, and what should we look out for?
Well, we can't predict anything.
Well,
So
yeah, that's one thing we've learned, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. I think so when Nextlaw Labs was founded, there were 75 legal tech companies. Now there are, 3 or 4,000, depending who's counting. I think that the tent has gotten big enough now that we're going to see some really interesting kind of groupings. We're starting to already see that around CLM, of course, and other kind of areas around both direct to consumer. I think one of the new things that we'll see gain a lot of traction is in the direct to consumer part of legal tech and justice tech in general. I think there's now enough of a kind of momentum in legal tech now, and it's kind of understandable to people on the outside. There's going to probably be, continue to be more money flowing in from institutional investors. And I think it will become mainstreamed in that way. And along with that, these kind of differentiations like justice tech is something I'm working a lot on right now, and spending quite a bit of time figuring out how we can leverage technology to really affect positive change and access to justice. I see a lot of momentum there, and I think really think 2022 is the year.
Yeah, I've never really kind of took stock that there's really kind of 3,000 to 4,000 legal tech companies. What I'm finding interesting in this space is that traditionally the technology has kind of been driven from the valley in San Francisco, right? Which is what I've with this. I mean, there's obviously Ironclad and there's many others in the valley, but what I'm liking and what I'm seeing is that it's quite spread geographically. Like
Definitely.
literally yesterday, I was speaking to someone who was in Tajikistan that was doing a legal tech startup. So I think really, maybe the pandemic has shifted that in terms of the geography, but I think the foundations of it were there before, which has probably been law firm led. Would you say that, or?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, definitely, that's another really excellent point, because I think that one of the real advantages of Denton's was that it was a global firm, and it's got offices, like 200 offices all over the world. And so, any given, and it enabled us as Nextlaw Labs to really plant flags of kind of innovation discussions all over the world. Wherever somebody wanted to talk to us about it, there was a burgeoning little mini ecosystem. And I do think kind of with the increase in everybody being virtual and 24 hours a day, that those dots are being connected more, and it's kind of coming together much more. And I think there's a lot of awareness of what's going on in different pockets. But I mean, pretty early on, I would say, with Nextlaw Labs, one of the things that we realized was, that there were these completely untapped areas of innovation that were taking the place of, they weren't just doing things that were applicable regionally by any means.
Yeah.
And really, coming at these problems from very different perspectives, which, as we know, I mean, one of my mantras is, diverse teams outperform the competition consistently. So being able to talk with people that were from diverse backgrounds, doing things, practicing law totally differently, experiencing their world very differently, was a net benefit. And I think I'm hoping that we can extrapolate from that the globalization kind of legal tech and the growing awareness of it all over the world is going to be a net positive for the industry. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Crossing my fingers and toes.
Yeah.
Just on that point, in my other life as a kind of a investor and entrepreneur, I was in a pitch this week where we were talking. It was from a actually it's an LSD psilocybin biotech, and they've worked out how to separate the trip from and get the same great effects that you can from LSD and psychedelics. And they were saying that in medicine, really that's kind of the final frontier in terms of being able to kind of and their big problem they're trying to solve is depression. So they really want to solve depression. Do you think, just kind of on that final frontier kind of point, do you think there is any big problem out there for legal that is like almost a final frontier? I mean, aside from, I guess, silly things in my mind, like the billable hour and stuff like that. And, to me, kind of less, world-changing problems, to me, they're more commercial. But, what in your mind, what would be the final frontier in this industry?
I don't know if it's final frontier. I think I'd find when I got there, I'd find something else to fix or do or something. But I think, and this is a big part of this is US based, but I think to a greater and lesser degree, it exists in a lot of different regions. And that is the regulatory framework around who can practice law and deliver legal services. I think that we're facing a crisis point in that we have a lock on who can deliver legal services, and kind of this whole threat of the unauthorized practice of law that's really blocking people from getting the assistance that they need at the price that they need and when and where they need it. And I think that, so that's, to me, that's a huge goal. We've got to have a more collective voice around regulatory reform, such that it's not this stranglehold, because we know the system doesn't work. And we also know that the system as it stands right now is set up for, and this is global, is set up for lawyers to run as a business. It's not set up for the client. It's not consumer friendly or consumer facing. And so that, I think the gears are slowly starting to turn there. But I think that ultimately we need to get to a point where the ability to deliver legal services is commensurate with the problems that are being solved, and not, this business lock on it.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And my wish is that, maybe legal needs to have that kind of Kodak moment that,
right,
that forces that change, because it doesn't, I think in this world where it's very much driven by revenue, profits, etc., that's going to be a really hard problem to tackle, but a good one to try and solve.
I like the big problems though.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think that's maybe that professor has given you that inquisitive mind, and definitely. Fantastic to talk to you, and many thanks for your time. I think the audience, when they listen to this, will take away so many kind of valuable lessons, and also, I guess, the fact that we're all in this same situation where we're juggling all these things, and families and work as well, and still being very successful. So I commend you and admire it all. So really well done. And
thank you so much. And if anyone listening, first of all, I'm sure we have many conversations to have offline after this. Yeah. But if anyone listening, I would love any feedback or thoughts that if anything was thought provoking or you feel like reaching out. I love chatting with folks with whom anything like this, these type of subjects resonate.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Maya, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.